Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode.
Yo, guys.
Yo.
Hey.
How do you guys feel about like post-apocalyptic media? Like, what are your thoughts? Are you guys for it, against it? Does it scare you? Does it like excite you?
Now, when you say post-apocalyptic, does this fall into also dystopian or is this separate?
All right. So a post-apocalyptic means that there was a catastrophic event that just changes the way we function as a society. A dystopian, while it can fall into dystopia as a result, I feel like dystopian can still be technologically advanced and just be dystopian, much like Handmaid's Tale, right? Where it's just we have recessed as a culture, we have regressed as a culture, but like technology hasn't changed per se, right? Internet still exists.
Yeah.
Whether or not they use it because of their religious beliefs is a different story. So that would be a dystopia. Hunger Games is also a dystopia where like, yeah, there was like some big catastrophic downfall of man, but like they rebuilt society, right? It's not post-apocalyptic. I feel like post-apocalyptic means that just the way we as a society function, we just cannot go back.
Nice definitions of both.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you answered that way because when I taught fantasy, I divided them into two separate classes. And part of me was like, so I made this one class, but I do think they're very different.
They are very different.
In terms of how, and in terms of how I feel about post-apocalyptic in general, it's not my go-to. I've spoken many times about my go-to genres. That's not amongst them. So for me, it has to be handled in a very specific way for me to really be 100% on board for it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in terms of like post-apocalyptic media, like I feel like there's a lot more options that come to mind, but like the more recent options would be, they tend to fall into the zombie apocalypse kind of world. Right?
Yeah.
Those tend to be the most common post-apocalyptic worlds we see. The Last of Us, Walking Dead.
I Am Legend.
Legend. Yeah, that's a good one.
World War Z.
War Z. Yeah. So those tend to be very, and they all follow the same trope, which is just like a zombie apocalypse of some sort.
Pretty much. Or some man-made virus, eats at the human society and whatnot.
Planet of the Apes is a post-apocalyptic story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though we're following
absolutely.
a new society, it is the fall of man, though, that we are witnessing.
Yes. I mean, that was the twist because you just think it's people in an alien world where the ape, now you're just like, but the twist is it's a post-apocalyptic world.
So, Nicole, you're not a fan of the post-apocalyptic society world.
It's not that I'm not a fan. It's not my genre. It's not my go-to genre. And in general, I think that I've said this too. The things that I like are things that more so mirror like things that are set in contemporary society. So I'd much rather watch a 1940 movie set in 1940 than I would a 2024 movie set in any time other than its own, if that makes sense.
Sure. Eddie, what about you? Post-apocalyptic films.
Love them.
You do?
I love that genre. I love the kind of end of the world, or that in between you get the time when the world as we know it is ending and the moment that we build a new society of some sort.
Okay.
Whether dystopian or a rebirth of society. But yeah, very much love post-apocalyptic. I have a friend who, because I remember when this genre was like really blowing up in literature, especially in YA. The idea of saying post-apocalyptic was very much, some people found that like ridiculous because when we think of the apocalypse, or we think of it's like the end,
right?
All things have end, but really the world, it's really about new beginnings, and how we as a society conceive that. And when we talk about post-apocalyptic, we usually very much talk about like just death and devastation and hunger and total almost like humanity almost lost, or even like people who are human but don't have humanity anymore. So I very much I love that kind of like to read and to watch
and to consume, right? So then, were you a fan then of the franchise we'll be talking about today? So were you a fan of the Mad Max series?
Yeah, I was not at the time, but now I am.
Oh, now you are. All right, fine. So we'll talk about it because I'm assuming it may have to do with the recent iterations of the Mad Max Saga. So with that, that's what we'll be covering today. Mad Max Fury Road, and Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. I'm Rolando.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Eddie Z.
And this is remakes.
Oh, see, I knew
Sorry,
this was going to... I knew
because I've been doing that part for so long.
But I started it off today. And this is remakes, reboots, and revivals.
An original podcast
about unoriginality.
I knew it. I just knew it. That it was going to throw everything off the moment I kicked things off. But
I know we've been doing it for so long that way. So regardless,
okay. Always be on your toes. Always be on your toes.
Yes. So we are talking about Mad Max. And before we get into it too, did you guys see this opening weekend?
We did. Did we watch it over the weekend?
Or oh yeah.
We watched it over the weekend.
Relatively this was a new release, but did you watch it like Friday night? Saturday night?
Saturday afternoon.
Okay. Was your theater packed?
No, it was certainly not. But this was also
certainly not. Yeah.
It was like what? This is like the lowest box office Memorial Day weekend like in 30 years or something?
Yes. Yes, it is. That is one of the things that I wanted to talk about. There's a crisis happening with the box office. People are just not wanting to go out to the theaters. And it's such a shame because there are some movies that are absolutely worth it to see in the theater, but a lot of people are just opting to wait for it to come onto streaming. Whether it be Challengers people are waiting for, or Dune Part 2, now that that's available on HBO Max. And now at the end of the day, it's going to be Furiosa. The last time that a movie made around the same amount of money that this movie, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga did, was in 1995 with Casper. And Furiosa Mad Max Saga made the same exact money on their Memorial Day openings.
Was Casper a bomb?
Casper didn't do as well as other movies probably of that year, but it was not a bomb.
Okay, good.
This is underperforming a lot. And this is also a string of many movies that is underperforming.
Yeah. So Challengers I did want to see that in theaters, but I don't think I'm missing out if I don't see it in theaters.
You know, I saw it with a packed theater on a Tuesday night. It was actually... I will say, it was packed because I think that people heard about, the throuple of it all.
Right.
And the sexuality of it. And people were there for it and they were reacting to it. So,
yeah. I mean...
Because it's kind of all over the place in that movie, so...
Yeah, that's a movie that I kind of do want to see. But that one, I feel like didn't have a big budget, though. So that one cannot be... Like, it may be underperforming, but it can't be, like, it cannot possibly be, like, something that's, like, really hurting the box office.
Let's check it out. So,
check out I'm on my computer. Because the movie that we just are going to cover, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, that one is spectacle, right? That one you put money in effects. That one you put money for that big theater experience. However, in defense of its performance, Mad Max Fury Road also didn't do that well in the box office.
Fury Road made somewhat similar of like an opening, especially on its Thursday night. But the anticipation for this movie was higher. Let's just say that. It was Challengers
higher by cinephiles, I feel like, because like for the most part, not really many people talked about Fury Road. The buzz around Fury Road, me? I don't think the buzz around Fury Road was really that spectacular.
I think maybe again, we run in different circles.
We do.
The day. I follow the film people.
I know.
And so many people put that at the top of their list of the
That's
best
what I said. The cinema
movie of the year.
Love.
So yeah, so for me, it was huge. But I also think that I know a lot of people went and saw that movie. People that I was shocked. I'm like, you went and saw Mad Max? Like, so that movie it got people out, right? And before the pandemic, word of mouth would get people out.
Yes.
That doesn't happen anymore. Word of mouth will get people to watch it the moment it becomes available on VOD.
I mean, look, Furiosa was also competing, though, against J-Lo's Atlas movie on Netflix. And here's the thing, right? Say what you will about J-Lo, say what you will about Netflix films. That is if you're already paying for Netflix, guess what? That means, okay, great. This is a CGI love fest. I could just sit at home, make my own popcorn, and not spend an extra dime and watch this. I think I'm going to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, the competition is so stiff. And, like, truly, for an average moviegoer, there is no way that they can tell the difference between Atlas and Fury Road Furiosa. You know what I mean? Like, they just probably won't. I'm thinking like people
nobody
like my
wants to go out, spend like $50 on tickets if it's like for you and your family or something, all that money on concessions, going out, so potentially gas, parking fees, because the theater I go to, I have to pay for parking, which is obnoxious.
Wait,
what?
Newport?
Well,
that's a mall. But the fact you have to pay for parking in a mall is ridiculous. I agree.
It is. So why not just spend $20 when it's available on VOD? It makes a lot of sense. This is what people were probably opting to do for The Fall Guy. This is what people are opting to do for that Ryan Reynolds movie. Who knows? This could continue to be the trajectory. What is going to save it? Is Deadpool and Wolverine actually going to get people to come out like they're hoping it will? We'll see.
Yeah,
I don't think
so one says no, Eddie says yes.
I kind of don't even want to see it, to be quite honest.
No, everyone's excited. Yeah. We're all on the high of the X-Men, so we're gonna go out there.
No, that's such a high that I just don't want it to be that. See, X-Men was such a high where I know I'm gonna be let down by Wolverine and Deadpool. I just know it. That's where I'm at, right? And we went through the list of movies for that we have upcoming that we might be covering on the podcast, and I think the only one that I'm excited for is currently Alien, maybe Beetlejuice, maybe.
Not Twisters? You weren't a part of
that?
No,
I have no interest in seeing Twisters. Like, I love the movie.
Well, you're going to see it in 4DX.
Oh, yeah. No, that I'll see it in 4DX if Eddie's paying, sure.
Okay.
I'm not paying. I'll pay for myself.
That's great.
I'm just kidding, babe. I'll treat you.
Really quickly, I just want to answer your question of a couple minutes ago for Challengers. That budget that was reported was $55 million. The box office is $86.
Okay, so there you go. But
it sounds like it's almost breaking even.
Yeah, which is, the only star in that movie was Zendaya. Where the hell did they spend $55 million on that one? You saw
that's how much, an average movie at the end of the day costs. Like, unless it's some horror movie that they somehow pull off for like $10 to $20 million. You get one star in it, boom, you're up to 50.
Yeah.
Mad Max Fury Road's budget was reported to be around 150 to 185, and it grossed 380 million. Okay. Right now, Furiosa only got about 35 on its weekend.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was 31, but
will it? Yeah, maybe it was even less than that. So will it get anywhere near to 380?
No way. Because here's the other thing. I mean, word of mouth, I don't know if it's going to help this movie out, to be quite honest.
So that's interesting too. And maybe this podcast will be a part of people deciding to see it in theaters. Maybe it won't. But so we should talk a little bit about how we're approaching this episode as well.
Sure.
When we started this podcast in 2018, we decided we wanted to do, new properties and whatnot. So Mad Max Fury Road came out in 2015, 3 years before we started it. So this was something we never really covered. But truly, the huge revival there was Fury Road. The fact that this was a fourth edition that followed a third part 30 years later. That is a revival. However, Furiosa Mad Max Saga, which was originally intended to be filmed back-to-back with Fury Road, took 9 years to happen. We technically qualify that as a revival because even though we usually do a 10-year, if you're reviving the property because you want to revive the IP for whatever reason it is, typically for business and financial reasons, that constitutes in our books under our title as a revival.
Right.
So the focus is going to be of the big revival of Fury Road and now the revival of that revival, which is Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Hope that makes sense. And
yes, it does.
We'll talk a little bit about the original films, but the focus is Fury Road and Furiosa.
Yes.
So when it comes to our relationship with the Mad Max series, Eddie, what is your relationship with this Mad Max franchise?
So I remember this as a little kid because it was always playing somewhere, especially Thunderdome was always playing. That's how very much I was introduced to Tina Turner.
That's so funny. What a gift, to be quite
in this
honest.
movie before I got to know her as a singer. And I couldn't appreciate, like I said, I didn't like where society ends and everybody's just animalistic and savage. And that's the way I had viewed the Mad Max series. It's just people being savage with each other and trying to survive. You know, no one's looking out for each other. It's just about survival. So I never gravitated to that. And then now you get older, you read more, and you just have interest in just the subtleties of and the dimensions and facets of humanity and just how we kind of evolve or de-evolve depending on the situation. I got to appreciate that when I saw Furiosa first, and then I saw Fury Road. So very much.
So you technically saw it in chronological order.
Yeah, I saw chronological, which was the best thing. Because when you find out certain things, you're like, oh, you feel it with her. I didn't want to know ahead of time when I saw Furiosa that certain things were going to play out the way they were.
Yeah.
So I had that kind of stuff. So in that case, seeing it that way I could appreciate kind of this continuous story and being with the character and being with her disappointment and lost until we get to this part of her end chapter.
So you saw Furiosa in theaters, but you did not see Fury Road in theaters.
No.
Okay. And we'll circle back to that experience in a bit. Rolando, your relationship with the Mad Max franchise.
Similar, right? The first Mad Max movie I saw was Beyond Thunderdome because I used to play that all the time on Channel 11 growing up as a kid. And I think my dad got mad at one point because that's the only one they played, because the other two I don't think are acceptable for TV. Definitely not Mad Max. I don't remember Road Warrior as well, but so we eventually watched them together, Mad Max and then Road Warrior, although for the longest time I thought it was reversed. I thought Road Warrior was the first one and then Mad Max. I always just confuse the titles, but I did rewatch Mad Max for the podcast. I've only seen those two once. Beyond Thunderdome I'd seen so many times, right? Like that one is just like instilled in my memory because of how often they played it on TV and how much I just ended up. There was something about the aesthetics that I liked, which the aesthetics for that film are incomparable, definitely to the first one, right? The first one feels like it's just a movie of its time, where the Beyond Thunderdome, they have those costumes, they have the hair, they have like kind of like set design, right? And it's something that you don't see until you see Road Warrior, right? That's why Road Warrior is a superior film to Mad Max. Mad Max just feels like a movie, a contemporary film from 1979, where Mad Max, the Lone Road Warrior, feels like a film that is a little bit more post-apocalyptic, right? And that's because society in the in-universe was changing, right? Like the apocalypse hadn't hit by the time Mad Max comes out, but it did by the time Road Warrior did. And then the full collapse happened by the time we're in Beyond Thunderdome, which is why all three have such major different feels.
So very dissimilarly, my relationship with Mad Max is that I never saw it on television growing up. I don't know what I wasn't watching or what you guys were watching, but I don't think I caught it. If I did, I easily just skipped right past it.
Not even Thunderdome. Unbelievable.
Not even Thunderdome. But I was unknowingly getting references from media that I was consuming, most notably South Park.
Yeah.
When I watched the films later, I was like, oh my God, that South Park reference is so clear now. So I watched Mad Max first in my early 20s, and I was like, this kind of sucks. And it took me a while to continue with the franchise because I just was not into that first movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I would argue that that's probably the weakest of the 5 films is the first one. It feels like a first film.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. And everyone's kind of a baby there, and he's still getting used to this world that he's building. And George Miller has been the only filmmaker and writer, technically, of these films since 1979, 45 years. So he's the writer and director of Mad Max Road Warrior, Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, Mad Max Fury Road, and Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. Mm-hmm. And he's a senior citizen at this point, making these movies still.
Mm-hmm.
Some other movies that George Miller has made, by the way, he was one of the 4 filmmakers of the Twilight Zone movie. He did The Witches of Eastwick with Cher, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Susan Sarandon.
Wow.
He did a movie called Lorenzo's Oil that I have not seen.
Oh, I've never seen it. I keep hearing the name, but I've never seen it before in my life.
Really? You keep hearing the name? Huh.
It shows up so many times on Bob's Burgers, and I just know the name Lorenzo's Oil, and I like American Dad.
Wow. Okay.
It's like the most obscure
That's a deep cut.
So
yeah.
I know Lorenzo's Oils. I just have no idea what it is.
Wow. Bob's Burger.
Yeah.
Damn. That's crazy. Well, surprisingly, he also made the movie Babe. And
no way. He made Babe?
He wrote and produced the first one, and then he directed, wrote, and produced the second one.
He directed Pig in the City? That's a shame.
He also did Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2.
Oh, I didn't know that about that. I didn't know George Miller did. All right. Wow, he's got like a robust repertoire, let me tell you.
Yes. Well, the part of the reason, too, is let's get into some history here, is that in between Thunderdome, which came out in 85, and Fury Road was a long period, 30 years. But Fury Road essentially took 15 years to make. He came up with the idea in the late 80s where he was like, wow, we should make him the next Mad Max movie. It's just like one long chase.
Mm-hmm.
And then he really came up with the idea in the late 90s and started working on it. Event after event happened that pretty much made it very, very like a long-winded process for him. Mm-hmm. Originally, it was going to star Mel Gibson. And in the woman role, which I don't think was Furiosa yet, it was going to be Sigourney Weaver.
Ooh, I would have seen that. This is before we found out that Mel Gibson was anti-Semite, right?
This is before we found that out, yes. So This is when Mel Gibson is like doing fresh off of Braveheart. What was he doing? What Women Want kind of era for Mel Gibson. Mm-hmm. So he's still kind of a heartthrob. And he hadn't directed movies yet, though. So it took him a while to, I think, like finalize it. And right when they were going to start making the movie, 9/11 happened. And inflation of the American dollar to the Australian dollar, something there happened that made it very, very expensive and they couldn't do it. So it took a couple more years. But by 2004, 2005-ish, when George Miller was like, all right, let's greenlight this, let's get this going, Mel Gibson became part of the problem. And also he was like, I don't know if I can make this movie with Mel Gibson anymore because this man is directing movies and he has his own like career now as a filmmaker going on. So he announced that he was willing to make the movie without him. He even toyed around with doing an animated version of this story. So like it took a long time for him to just actually get the green light and get it casted and get all these people on board. I think this film actually filmed in like 2012. They casted it in 2010. They couldn't film until 2012. And then it just took a long time for them to film, to edit, and finally get it released in 2015.
Interesting.
It's a crazy story.
Yeah, because I remember, so I know George Miller mostly because he was tapped in to do Justice League before Zack Snyder. So before Zack Snyder, it was supposed to be George Miller, and it was going to be Justice League Mortal. And I think since like some of the concept art that had come out has been released, but like that kind of got held up because of the writer's strike. We forget about the writer's strike that also happened in 2007. That kind of also held up a lot of Hollywood.
That's true. A lot of things, yeah.
And what?
Oh, well, one of the things that I read that he did, though, was that he took that time and he built out the complete storyboard for the film.
So
which was like
a chase scene,
3,500 panels long.
Oh, for Fury Road?
Yeah.
All you have to do is just put cars, I guess. I could do that with my Hot Wheels.
You're really undermining action movies and how to direct them.
I know, I really am. Because this movie was. I regret not seeing this movie in theaters. This one was definitely made for theaters. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. This one is pure spectacle.
So he had so much time with this material. He spent so much time writing it. He completely drew it out and mapped it out. That's something that Alfred Hitchcock did. He like completely drew out all his storyboards before he even got to set, so that everything went kind of smooth for him. He knew exactly what shots he was going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, that's why he ended up saying like, oh, I want to make Fury Road and Furiosa back to back because I've spent so much time with these characters and I've come up with these backstories that I actually think the backstory for this character is worth its own freaking movie.
Mm-hmm.
But during pre-production, they decided that financially it would be better if they didn't. So he kind of put it on hold. And Again, for many different reasons, Furiosa took about 9 years to make. And because of that, he decided, instead of going with anti-aging technology, to recast Furiosa, which Charlize Theron was, kind of heartbroken by, but she understood. And the choice to pretty much recast Charlize Theron is one that I wonder if that worked for the movie or not. But again, we'll get to that. Fury Road came out in 2015. It wasn't in the top 10 that year. So I guess maybe it wasn't as big as a splash, but I remember everyone saying it was one of the best action movies of all time. And like Rolando has said, cinephiles love this movie. People who are really into movies are like, oh my God, it was such an amazing experience. It's like our Ben-Hur, our Lawrence of Arabia, movie references. And yeah, it was a smash, essentially. So you guys just saw it.
We just saw it also after Furiosa, as George Miller probably intended.
I think he always intended for Fury Road to come first.
Whatever. He's wrong then. No. Yeah, no, look. So I never saw it in theaters, and I think part of the reason I never saw it in theaters was because the trailers and the commercials just never made it look interesting, to be quite honest. Interesting choice, right? Because it looked like such spectacle that I was just like, I don't know if I have the attention span for this. I can't. Like, all the shots were like of like Tom Hardy in that mask while he's like chained up on a car, and then just like cars exploding. I was just like, I'm not watching Fast and the Furious in the desert. I had no tolerance. And the trailer did no justice to it. I kept seeing a bald-headed Charlize Theron, and I was just like, oh, is this like a monster sequel? I don't know. But I was just like, I wasn't into it. And so this is why I just never saw it, despite the fact that my friend, one of my dear friends, kept insisting I watch it in theaters while I can because he loved it. And I was just like, all right, I'll get around to it. But I never did. And here we are now.
And then you regretted it.
I regret it now. Yeah, I do regret it. They should have, to be quite honest, they should have re-released Mad Max Fury Road and had a double feature.
Ooh, I wonder if people would have actually seen that, though.
Maybe more people would have seen it.
Now, that friend who loved Fury Road, has he seen Furiosa?
Yes, we saw it together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, then there you go.
He was ecstatic to see. He was like dying to see Furiosa. So, and I was just like, all right, well, I got to watch it for the podcast. So if it all works out,
Is it Levi?
It was Levi.
It was Levi.
Yeah.
Levi
been
foaming at the mouth for this movie because he loved Mad Max Fury Road so much. And like, I get it's the movie's pure spectacle. I wouldn't call it one of the greatest. What other movies came out in 2015? You said it didn't even crack the top 10. I knew this because the movie itself was not that big of a financial like mega house.
Yeah, it didn't crack the top 10, but again, more people were going to see movies then. And also, it was just a huge IP year, as most movies of the 2010s are. Number one was The Force Awakens.
Oh, wow.
Which was a big deal when that came out.
That was huge.
Number two was Jurassic World.
Which I liked. I don't care. I did enjoy Jurassic World.
Number three was Furious 7.
Her running against stilettos? Yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
T-Rex is chasing her. Iconic.
I think I've put Jurassic World out of my head, so I don't know.
You could put the other two in the back of your head, but you cannot put Jurassic World in the back of your head. Jurassic World is...
The first one or the last one?
The first one.
Yeah, I put it out of my head. Number 4 is Avengers Age of Ultron.
Wow, that was number 4. That's wild.
That was number 4.
But Disney killing it because, number 1 and number 4 right there.
Number 5 was Minions.
Yo, Minions does so well. It's crazy.
It does so well.
It always, the fact that 2 of their movies have cracked 1 billion is, mind-boggling. I don't get the appeal. I've seen the first one, and I'm just like, I don't know if I need to see more of these.
Me neither, but kids' movies will always, save the day at the end of the day.
You would
financially
think, but,
in the box
some
office.
of the family-friendly movies, this opening weekend also kind of flopped.
Yeah.
I don't remember what
the
they
Garfield
were.
one?
Oh, Garfield, which technically we could cover if we wanted to.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe if we were doing weekly, we would have. But anyway, the other movies were Spectre, Inside Out, which, again, is another property that we're going to be tackling soon. Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 2, and The Martian.
Oh, The Martian. The Martian was good. Yeah, that was fun.
Good.
Did you guys see that movie in theaters?
We did. Eddie loved the
See,
book.
look
So
at that.
I love the book.
Yeah, Eddie loved the book, so he made me go out to theaters to see it.
Oh, okay. That's cute.
And it was,
So, but again, just going to theaters more to see movies like The Martian, which nowadays would probably be put directly to streaming, let's be honest.
That movie had some spectacle in it, so maybe not. It also had like
okay.
It also had like Matt Damon, farming with like shit like an animal. So it was I don't know. Would I want to see that at home, or would I rather?
I never saw that. So, but now I kind of want to watch it.
Oh, it's good. It's worth it.
I've never seen The Martian. Yeah,
it is a sweet film. So
I also
I think I seen half
Road.
of those. I think I saw half of those movies in theaters.
Oh, there you go. Well, so I didn't see a lot of them, but that's because 2015 I was starting to like get very underwhelmed by recent movies. So I kind of took a break. I took my sabbatical then. I was. So Fury Road I didn't see in theaters. Yeah. But I ended up watching it at home with my surround sound and stuff.
So you also didn't see
does not compare to the theater. No, I didn't.
Wow.
And even though I try and set up my home system as well as I can, but nothing can compare to being in a movie theater. True. And when I first saw it, I was like, this was good. But when I rewatched it, I was like, okay, yeah, no, this is really good. And I think that the two best Mad Max movies are Road Warrior and Fury Road because they're the simplest.
Okay, Road Warrior is incredibly simple, right? And I think that does attribute, but it's also when we start seeing his leather jacket, right? And like we started really seeing that that post-apocalyptic feel and like the costumes and like the gangs, right? It starts looking more like what we think of Mad Max, which I think they just cranked up a notch when we got Beyond Thunderdome. My beef with Mad Max Fury Road is that it's just, at the end of the day, it's too simple though. That's why I'm not like I liked it. It was pure spectacle. I would enjoy watching the movie, but it's just like it's just a simple movie. It's just chase. That's how we're watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but is it really that simple? Yeah. Like, is there nothing more you can grasp from it? But the genre is post-apocalyptic, right? So there's representations of this wasteland too that I think there's a lot to get from it. So at the core of it, the story's simple. Mm-hmm. These girls, we need to rescue these girls and get them away from the bad guy, right?
Well, which is not even because Mad Max is supposed to be the main character, right? So it's more like we're technically. So here's the thing that annoys me too, because this is a Mad Max movie, not a Furiosa movie. Just let's get that clear. This is Mad Max. Mad Max in this film is really just a side character, though, despite the fact that this is supposed to be his story. And I had a question. Those flashbacks that we see, are those the children from Beyond Thunderdome?
So this is where if you start really trying to tie all the movies in together, you're going to get a bit of a headache because I think George Miller doesn't really care so much for consistency.
Continuity?
Throughout the story or in continuity.
Continuity? That's so important.
You could also, some people think it's his daughter.
But he had a son.
Exactly.
Oh.
So, and if you really tried to like figure out when this exactly takes place, because in Mad Max, right, the opening title is the first one, 1979, a few years from now. So technically, the Road Warrior and Beyond the Thunderdome all happened in the 80s and the 90s. But I don't think Mad Max Fury Road exists within that. He's gone on record to say 45 years after the collapse, right? Because that's what they call it, the collapse.
Because the collapse happened.
So Max is still alive?
10 years after Road Warrior. That's when collapse happened. Like the nuclear wasteland, I think, happened sometime before Road Warrior, but the official collapse doesn't happen until like a decade later.
Exactly. So are we supposed to believe that this is the same Max character? So that's also why it's like,
so it's not like,
don't think about that.
Don't think about that. Got it. All right, fine, which is fine.
Yeah.
I wasn't because remember, I hadn't seen it. When I watched it, I was just like, wait a minute. So he really, we knew that he let down these kids. He walked away from them at the end of Thunderdome. So
this is true.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But Maxo is not making the best decisions. But I still think it's his story.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might not be the best character in the film, but here's a man who is traumatized and just trying to survive, but he comes across and his story intertwines with this other huge story, and he finds himself, being haunted by his past enough to decide that I have to do what forcibly in a way, but I have to do the right thing and help these people.
It felt mostly, I guess maybe the beef with it is that he felt he was a little passive in this film, where all the other characters had much more agency. right?
Okay.
He's just going with the flow of things because he's under these circumstances. None of his decisions. Yeah.
Is he going with the flow of things, or is he forcibly going with the flow of things because he's tied up as a blood bag in the
well, I mean, yeah, like whether or not he's still like, but he has made no choice in the matter, really. I think the only choice he made was when he came back for the women and put them in the rig. Oh, that wasn't even his choice because like the rig wouldn't work without her code. So.
Yeah, he begrudgingly did it because the rig, because Furiosa made it that way.
So yeah,
but that's the thing, like these two stories kind of like intertwine together and they just have to survive. But so you think it's too simple?
That doesn't mean that I think it's a bad movie. I just think it's just so simple to the point where it's just like, okay, but really, let's just be real here. We're watching just to see these cards explode. We're watching to see this big rig get chased, and like we're seeing guys on these like sticks like land, and like we just need to be honest with ourselves. We want the spectacle, which is fine. That's what theater is, right?
Yeah.
But whether or not like
True.
I wouldn't necessarily call that like great film. Oh, I take it back. Hang on, let me reverse that, because I also happen to know, because we studied this in film school, is that this movie, a lot of it does rely on practical effects, which huge respect, right? Like a lot of the film being done in practical effects, great, especially for 2015, because by then we were already in the CGI love fest. Like everything was like CGI if we could be. So the fact that they opted to do a lot of stuff in practical effects also does heighten, I guess, the experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I do think you're right that this movie is pure spectacle and like a lot of it is just to have fun. But I also think that a good movie will do that, but also will, whether or not maybe it's trying to, but most of the time I do think it's trying to. Sometimes it tries too hard, but it wants to say something. And a lot of the times it says things that maybe is a byproduct of it all. And the interesting thing about Mad Max as a franchise, right, is that whatever cultural backdrop you provide on it, it works. Like you can look at it as a samurai film, or you could look at it as a Viking tale, or you could look at it as a Western, which is something that I like to do. And if you were to look at it as a Western and kind of like people trying to tame the untamable, trying to kind of like humanize it, you know, this is a story about people fighting for their humanity. Especially look at the war boys, right? So devoid of humanity that they've lost their color. They're completely white. You know, voluntarily, of course, and they all dress and sacrifice themselves for this in Morton Joe, but they're so devoid of this, what it is to be human and what it is to have a conscience. And these are people who are fighting to retain that, you know, and they're fighting to go somewhere where there is still somewhere of life. They're fighting to go somewhere that there's grass, that there's some like remains of what it is to be a person on the planet Earth. Because they've forgotten what that's like. And I don't know, there's something really interesting about watching people like try to survive and maintain their humanity against all odds. Which is, but also a lot of people said that what's so charming about these movies is that they're the noisiest silent films of all time. Like they don't really need any dialogue. You can watch this film with actually no sound and get what the hell's going on. So then it becomes pure visual. It becomes a pure visual feast.
Yes.
Which is also something that I think I appreciate about it. So I do agree that it's like simple, but I also think that there's a lot that could be right underneath it. I mean, a lot of people like to say that it's feminist too and all this stuff. So
how?
I guess Furiosa, right?
What makes her feminist?
The fact that she is a hero at this like standard of what it is to be like a typically male dominated in a male dominated world, but also like a hero with male attributes, right?
I don't know if that necessarily makes you a feminist thing though.
Well, wait, hold on. But she also is now taking these women outside of like, you know, the confines of being just people who are
they're just bags to make bodies. They're just like
they're pretty much They're
factories, baby factories.
She's also like a mother figure to them in a way, like she's taking care of them and their needs and treating them like human beings and like giving them their freedom, that they're more than just this. So I would say that that's like taking them from the male confines of their lives and giving them the freedom that they never knew that they could have. within like but like doing it on their level too, you know, like not doing it in a typically quote unquote feminine way, doing it in this barbaric masculine way that the world has kind of become.
Okay.
But that's just my on the spot defense of it. If I don't know if I would say that this is a feminist masterpiece, but you could, I suppose, read into it like that.
Yeah, I definitely for sure see how Furiosa breaks a lot of the mold, especially the Mad Max movies, right? Considering like our main character has always been like Mad Max and is very hyper masculine. Like all the villains have always been this hyper masculine. Even for example, like Tina Turner's character, she wasn't necessarily the villain, right? She was like kind of like the intermediary between the big bad and Mad Max. So, you know, I guess this having her in this role does change things for sure. I guess the reason I'm saying is like, I don't know if I would necessarily qualify this as like, I don't know, a feminist read on this is a little bit more difficult. Sure, we could make the argument that the male gaze, right? Because like the way they dressed up Charlize Theron doesn't completely devoid her of any sexuality, but she's so non-sexual, right? Like in all the way they define her shots, there is an asexuality to how they frame her and like the body parts that we're focusing on her, right? Which is a mark of like, I guess, when we're looking for feminist theory in film. But I don't know. I don't. Yeah. So fine. I guess I agree. It's at the end of the day. You're right.
What do you think about her performance?
Oh,
Speaking of Charlize Theron.
I liked her a lot. She was great. Like she was. I happen to like Charlize Theron. My favorite Charlize Theron role though is of course from Arrested Development.
Oh my god, yeah.
She's so good.
Mr. F.
Yes, but no, she was she was wonderful. She was great, and she gave us something because the way they wrote Mad Max, he gave us nothing, right? So like she had to do a lot of the heavy lifting on this, and
yeah,
you know, I really felt for her character when she discovers that the Green Lands no longer exists, that she was so desperately trying to get to. And I guess this is where watching the movies in reverse helps, because yeah, if I had watched Furiosa after this, it makes that movie much more moot, because it's just like all this for what? Like your home doesn't exist. You know what I mean? So
and you also have hope for the character.
For sure.
Like you have the hope. You're like, I believe this too. I can't wait when we get to the Greenlands too. Like you take us there.
Because because truly believe what I thought was just like, oh yeah, so she must get to the Greenlands by the end of Fury Road, right? And that gets ripped away from me by the third act. I'm just like, oh, it's not there anymore.
And it's so shitty the way it is. It's so ridiculous. Oh, so ridiculous. But just to add something, I did some research. So the little girl is named Gloria, and she's from the comic books. Mad Max Fury Road comic books, which kind of like ends where Fury Road begins. And Max had saved this child and her mother, and they were heading to the Citadel, or they were heading in that direction, and they were attacked, and the little girl and the mother were killed in a crash, and Max witnessed the little girl's death, and that just messed him up too. So this comic book is interesting because it kind of hints about like just kind of the origins of where he's at, where his mental state is at, and also gives you an idea also of Furiosa from when we leave off in the movie we just saw to where we see her in Fury Road.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting.
So
too much tongue twisting also with the Fury Road, Furiosa. It's just like I need a little differentiation here. But yeah, no, I think she gave a great performance, and I did enjoy her. I know I sound like I was complaining about Tom Hardy's Mad Max, but Tom Hardy is so eye-catching on screen that like his gruffness and his toughness certainly worked in his favor, right? Because he's got lips for days for a white man, let me tell you. And
he does indeed.
Like crazy, crazy amount of lips.
I think Charlize Theron was great. I think she's one of the best part of this movie. And I don't know if there's action movie stars anymore, you know, aside from like say Tom Cruise. Like younger ones, not people who have been doing it for maybe 40 years, newer action movie stars.
I was going to say, like,
people
The
who
Rock.
you want to go and see. So it's interesting. There's The Rock, but he also hasn't made anything for a couple years.
Well, the last thing he did
I was
flopped.
thinking, he hasn't been in good movies. I was thinking Jason Statham, right? And it's like interesting
one,
because like he came out with The Beekeeper this year, but he's also not a star to that level. That's the thing. Like there used to be action movie stars, and there also used to be people who could have a whole career just doing action movies. And now you get people who do both, right? They dabble. They'll make their action movie, they'll make their comedy movie, they make their drama movie. And stardom has completely changed and whatnot. But if you were to qualify someone for an action movie star and you were to put some nominees up there, I might put Charlize Theron up there. I think she's one of the most badass people. This and Atomic Blonde. She's in the like Fast and Furious movies now. Like she knows how to kick some serious ass.
Oh, interesting. I guess I wasn't aware that she had done more action movies. I guess I would put probably Michelle Rodriguez in that category too, despite the fact that she's gotten typecast.
Okay.
You know?
Because of Fast and the Furious?
She's been in more than just Fast and the Furious, ma'am. That's just her most famous. Like, she was in Resident Evil. That's where I first got to know her.
She was in Lost.
Resident Evil.
Okay. Was she in Lost?
Okay.
I didn't know that she was in Lost. Mm-hmm. She was in Dungeons and Dragons most recently, where I thought she was spectacular. That was like such a good role for her.
Did that movie perform well at the box office?
Sadly, it did not. It didn't. I think.
Is it getting a sequel though?
I think they greenlit a sequel, but I think they also cut the budget in half, which is fine. I think you could totally do a cheaper movie. But that movie was so good. It was like that's a shame. That's another one that's a shame that people didn't watch in theaters. Or I don't know if people streamed it, but that was a shockingly like good movie.
Listen to our episode.
Yeah. Yeah, so should we just get into Furiosa then?
We're not going to speak about Nicholas Hoult.
We're there.
Oh yeah, Nicholas Hoult, the other character.
Who did I thought if anyone had a redemption story, any character, I feel like his story made the most sense and had a completion.
Yeah.
You know, besides Furiosa. You know, this is literally the example of like them being brainwashed to believe that their death will lead them to Valhalla. And how noble it is. So he was always looking at an opportunity to be like, I'm doing this I'm going to die for the cause and everything. And then when he sacrifices himself truly
for such a noble choice, right? Like
for noble choice,
because it kind of became for love in a way, right? Because like he was like falling for one of the maidens that they were rescuing.
And it's so interesting because every time he was always trying to get to Valhalla, he was like, oh, this is my moment. This is my moment. He would say, witness me, witness me, witness me. And then something stupid would happen and he wouldn't die and stuff like that. And he's like, but that moment when it's his moment and he's going to sacrifice himself for a greater cause or for love. And he says, witness me. It hit me. That moment hit me. It was just like, this is beautiful. You know,
that
moment
nice.
was this beautiful, this moment of sacrifice that he's going to do it because he cares. He really cares. He's made a connection. He made a connection and said, witness this, you know, I was like, I enjoyed the movie a lot more because of that. Because I got to see the completion of that, you know, the beginning to the end of that.
Yeah, for like a side character, I think they really did a good job of developing him and kind of giving him, you're right, an arc, and you kind of, by the end, are rooting for him, and you kind of come to like him. And so, and props to Nicholas Hoult, who he is charismatic enough to like do this, right? Nicholas Hoult is one of those interesting actors who has like, he's very obscure or he's very much in your face. And this one was one of those like obscure roles where he's hidden under makeup and he doesn't look like who we know him as the actor, but he did such a good job. He kind of like morphed into the role. And I appreciated that a lot. The other thing I will say though for this film, the costume design were wonderful. I mean, what was his name? Impenetrable Joe? Immortan Joe. Like that costume design for that was so creepy and ugly.
Yeah.
And just absolutely intimidating. And that's just like, and great costume design. Even Furiosa's outfit, right? Like, she's missing an arm, so she has that like robotic hand, and like the way they have her face like just covered in like just, I don't know, ash or just black paint and stuff, right? Just interesting. Even Mad Max's mask that he had for the first act of the film is just like kind of memorable, right? So this is just a movie that like when it comes to, and I will say this a lot about the other Mad Max movies, like when it comes to costume design, they understand the assignment. Like we're in an Australian wasteland. I really do hope that if I go to Australia one day, this is how people dress up, like just in the regular.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I'm glad you said that though, because this film got nominated for 10 Academy Awards and it won 6.
Oh, nice. Yeah, a lot of technical stuff, right?
Makeup. It won for makeup and it won for costume design. It won for editing. It won for production. It won for sound editing and mixing back when those were 2 separate things. And it did not win, but it was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, I remember. Director. It was like the surprise of the year. Like it came out with so many Oscar nominations and stuff. And that's kind of when I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to go check it out in Oscar nominations. Does not equal a financial smash. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, nowadays, typically a box office action or comedy movie will make Best Picture. I mean, it happened with Black Panther. It happened with Top Gun Maverick. It happened with Barbie.
No, yeah.
They don't win, but they'll get the nomination.
And this happened after they opened up the nominations to have more than 5.
Yeah,
right. I mean, that's how and that's how sometimes you get like feel-goodery movies sneak in there, like Hidden Figures, which I liked. Right? Is that really a Best Picture nominee worthy film? But it's a good film. I enjoy it.
Yeah, never saw it.
You've never seen it? My God,
Nicole,
Taraji P. Henson.
So
that's good.
I'm sure on list of movies I must see. I don't know if that's on my top.
Oh, I would disagree. I disagree on that one.
So, let's talk about Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. Couple of things that makes this movie unique from the other movies. One, this one is the first time that we go back in time. This has always been, it takes place in, chronological timeline. Mm-hmm. This one goes into the past, kind of goes back and forth between that. It is also the longest of the Mad Max movies. I just want to put that out there.
Is it?
These movies were known for the first 3, at least, for being tight 1.5 hour movies, Beyond the Thunderdome being a little bit longer than that. Mad Max Fury Road being 2 hours, and now Furiosa being 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
All things that maybe are part of the reason why this movie is underperforming.
Possibly.
Who knows?
I mean,
also, maybe adds to the overall disenjoyment of the film. Whatever.
All right, let's just get it out of the way. Did you not enjoy the film?
No, I thought it was good, but by the end, I was like, okay, this needs to be over with.
I kind of agree with you. I do think Furiosa was a little bit too long, but I didn't know how long Mad Max was, right? So I had nothing to compare it to. But I did know it was already
the first 3.
I know it was already longer than the first 3, right? Because the first 3 they were cut for TV, so they were like.
Yeah, when you say Mad Max, are you talking about Fury Road?
Fury Road.
Okay, yeah, because the first couple movies, 1.5 hours. Mm-hmm. You're in and you're out, right? And also, this is a fun movie. It's like a horror movie being over 2 hours. If you're watching a horror movie that's over 2 hours, it's like, what are you doing?
Interesting.
Horror movies should not be over 2 hours. There are certain genres that the longer you make it, the more you lose people and the more you kind of can ruin it.
Is it Alien more than 2 hours?
I think Aliens is better.
Well, Aliens is an action movie. It's not a horror movie, though.
It's the action movie.
But it's an action movie.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
So.
Alien might be right under 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Thing is also, I think, 2 hours, isn't it?
It's under 2 hours.
It's under 2 hours? Okay. That feels a little longer. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Furiosa. I agree with you. I think Furiosa was a bit too long, but, again, lucky for me, I did not see Fury Road before this, right? So I was kind of just like, okay, so this is the origin story. This is the Mad Max to the Furiosa saga, I guess, right? Like we see like how she came to be. And yeah, I came out like enjoying it. Mostly because I did not have, again, Fury Road to kind of compare it to. So, it gave me a plot. We followed a young woman kidnapped from her homeland in this like post-apocalyptic wasteland, and a mother's sacrifice, and her quest for survival and revenge, right? Like survival first to fulfill the promise she made her mom, but then when the opportunity presented itself for revenge while trying to get home. And because of that, it doesn't necessarily follow like a linear plot, right? It's not like her goals keep changing throughout the film, right? Where sometimes it's to get home, sometimes it's to get revenge. And along the way, she also falls in love. You know, a lot happens to her.
So I would disagree just a little bit. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I just say this is a girl who knows how to. This is a character that knows how to make the best of an opportunity presenting. And let's not forget that from being caught as a little girl to being on that rig, she did a whole Mulan where she wrapped herself up in some gear and she played off as a man, as a little boy, and got herself and positioned herself and got herself promoted to put herself in a point where she created the opportunity for escape, where she saw the opportunity to escape and she went for it. And of course, she can multitask. So she says, well, if I'm going to escape, let's get some revenge on the way.
Right.
You know, let's serve that dish cold.
Now,
and she did.
For this film, Anya Taylor-Joy was fine. Was she a delight to watch on screen? Sometimes. But truly, the problem here was she was acting against Chris Hemsworth, who acted his heart out. And my God, did he deliver. I think he was so good as the bad guy that it really made this movie that much more enjoyable. Every time he was on screen with the prosthetics, like his over-the-top behavior, right? Because I'm so used to seeing Chris Hemsworth not being necessarily the best, right? He's fine as Thor, I think, right? And sometimes he can be really good when directed. And this is a movie that clearly, there's a director who knows how to direct Chris Hemsworth, because like we really got a good performance out of Chris Hemsworth, like a really memorable performance. He was so good. He was so charismatic and so vicious at the same time that like I really liked this performance a lot.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of his performance in Ghostbusters. Remember when we did the one with Kristen Wiig?
The problem with that one was just like, I think he was just too one note. Yeah, like he just too silly. And where this,
I'm not talking about the character. I'm talking about the performance. I'm talking about how hammy he makes it.
Yeah. Fine. Okay.
And so, like, that's the thing. Like, there's something about him where I'm like, he's almost like performing for some like girl who's off camera, and he's like, "Hey, did you see that?" Like, there's something about him that's super extra. Even when he plays Thor, whether or not he's like a good actor, I can't say, but he's such a ham in every single performance that he gives that is very unique to him. Like, it's almost like he's too much like doing a thing where he's like looking off and being like, "Hey, did you catch that?" Like, he gives off that energy,
which works.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense. And I think it works for this character who is trying to be a leader in a post-apocalyptic world, right? Like, you need that bravado. And that's because that's what people are following. So it just makes sense
and he brings humor to it. Yeah. And that's the other thing. Like, he's oddly humorous, right? You're actually laughing in the middle of all of this, which I don't know about you guys, but I'm not laughing much during these Mad Max movies.
You weren't laughing.
So, but then all of a sudden, not as much. But then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, this guy is being almost so ridiculous that I'm experiencing something that I've never experienced in this type of movie before, which is different, but also kind of, it took me out of it, but not like to ruin the movie. But I was like, oh yeah, no, Chris Hemsworth is doing his shtick, you know? Like, it was an interesting addition to it. The nose worked great for him. You know, gotta love a prosthetic nose to transform someone.
Is it a better nose than Bradley Cooper's?
Oh, 100%. This should win the Oscar.
The nose, no.
Yeah, I think I couldn't understand him sometimes too, which was also
he did sound very like penguin-esque at times for some reason. Like like the penguin from like the TV show, like the Adam West TV show is what he reminded me of at times.
Oh, Burgess Meredith.
Yeah. Like there was just
maybe
something in in the way he spoke that just reminded me of that.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to drag him by any means. I'm just it's a very unique performance. It was, and of course, in direct contrast to
the rest of the film.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
I agree. Yeah, especially when you even compare it to Mad Max. because in Morton Joe, for example, while it was a great character design, he's not giving us character. He's just cool to look at. His intimidation doesn't come from his performance or his delivery. It comes from just how he looks. Where this Chris Hemsworth's character, I forgot. Anyone remember his name?
It's like Dr.
Dementis.
Okay.
Dementis,
so, his is while he's like intimidating with those gigantic arms he has, it's that performance that makes him such a memorable character. Where anyone in that costume can be, Immortan Joe, because that costume is so cool. But that's not necessarily the performance that's driving that role. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's at its most intense, or just at 11, let's say, at the final confrontation.
Sure. Yeah.
She's like really trying to get her vengeance and be dramatic, and he's just
kind of stealing it from her. Yeah. He's
and like, not let it. But also like making her more like angry and almost like you, to the point where it's like, wow, this isn't the moment we thought it was going to be. So it's very interesting because, again, we haven't really had a character like this. Like, even if you think about Road Warrior, what was that guy's? Humongous,
yeah.
Another one hidden behind just all muscles, hidden behind a mask. Just walk away.
Yeah, and very Bane-like.
Yes, very Bane-like indeed. We kind of haven't had somebody as exuberant as this since perhaps Thunderdome and whatnot. So it was a nice change. And this is very different. So it's longer because this movie has approached it differently. There's 5 chapters and it's way more episodic, and it's kind of taking its time. They're all sort of short films within themselves that exist apart from each other. Whereas Fury Road is just, that movie exists as a movie. But these exist as vignettes.
Yeah. Agreed.
And it's very different, I think, also from Road Warrior, which is also, that's a movie, right? There's no vignettes in that, really. And I liked that different approach to it. It actually drew me in a little bit more. I don't know about you guys, but I also do think that after a while, I got a little tired of it. I was ready for the movie to be over.
You get tired?
Particularly by the 5th chapter.
Oh, for me, it's probably the 4th chapter for me where I kind of got tired. That's like kind of the love story chapter, right?
So it's interesting too, because you say love story, and yet they just seemed like they had a bond.
Oh, you don't think they were in love?
Were in love.
Wait,
they never kissed. They never. I don't know. They just.
You don't need to kiss to.
They had a bond
to have love.
But you also don't need to be in love to have love.
I didn't say they were in love. I said it was a love story.
But when you say love story, I mean,
yeah, I guess the implication there is like it's a romantic kind of love, but I think I think it was very clear that she loved this person. Now, whether or not that was like a romantic love or a love of like just that happens like just from bonding through, driving down Fury Road, however many years they were working together, that's up for us to decide. But I think there was definitely affection there that she had not had up since she got kidnapped, right? That's why I think he was character. And I think that's why, it's why I'm supposed to feel worse about his death, but I don't know if his death, it hit me as hard.
Well, so it's interesting. That's a good point, because he's the only person who doesn't want to know where she's from, who doesn't dig deeper, who doesn't pry anything out of her. He almost lets her have her secrets and have her reasons, and he just wants to help her with them. Right? So this is a person who respects her on equal footing, essentially. Nobody else does. And then they drag his body for what it seems to be like hours, and she escapes, but we never see what happens to him. And that, I thought, was like, even if they showed us a shot like, oh, okay, yeah, he's dead, like that needed closure, especially because of her affection for him, whether or not it was romantic or not. And it was so interesting. I'm like, this movie is so long, but it couldn't take 2 fucking seconds to show us what happened to poor Jack. Like, that was a little disappointing, because it did leave me wondering what happened to him.
I don't know. Driving around in the sand in circles for hours, kind of.
Well, you never know. You never know.
My dog.
You never know.
You never know.
He's chased by dogs also.
There's always this opportunity for some resurrection moment for him.
I suppose.
You know, if the option to tell this character's story is presented, then we get to expand the universe here, because this is one of the characters here that does show compassion and kindness to her especially. But you get to see, like I said, when you're in the wastelands and the savagery and everybody's just out for themselves, or you're using or you're being used, and then you see within these two people, like him, like reaching out, him like providing for her, him teaching her, mentoring her, and being a mentor to her. And so, and yeah, the affection that they develop, whether it's a romantic thing, whether it's like, you know, brother and sister, you know, we don't really know, but
yeah, I do think it was more romantic. It skewed more romantic. I think she had the hots for him, and who wouldn't with that mullet?
There was something so Elvis Presley about him. Like when I looked at his face,
he was handsome.
Yeah, when I looked at his face, I said, I wonder if he played Elvis Presley at one point. You know, like I looked at you know, he hasn't, but he's something very like Elvis-y about his features.
Yeah, a little bit. I would agree. Yeah, and I think all of the best sequences in the movie did involve him, like the attempted siege of the war rig the first time when she's like it was the stowaway, I think it was called that chapter.
Yeah.
Which
and
was
then,
a
like,
good chapter.
and that moment,
it was
and then like you see her hair and they lock eyes, and like there's this whole other thing happening between them. So now she's like, oh shit, you know, like I'm going to try and survive on this moving war rig, but also I've been found out.
Yeah.
And again, practically silent, which is what's so impressive about this. A big influence, I watched a video of George Miller that he said was Buster Keaton movies from the 20s.
Oh.
And that he actually like, there's a shot of Buster Keaton in the general on a train, like right in front holding on. And that's like a direct visual reference of like these guys who are propped right in front of their machines, like in Mad Max, which is crazy. You also see like Ben-Hur, especially with Chris Hemsworth's ridiculous motorcycle thing that looks
motorcycle chariot. Like, how is that functioning? Before we even get to that,
how does that work?
How does that work?
And like, does anyone else watch this movie and be like, how in this wasteland, first of all, do they have these many guns? Do they like make this arm thing for her? Like,
yeah, that's the thing too. I'm like how innovative people are in, like, I was always impressed about. That's like the best way of using like a parachute. Like they're just gliding in the air. It's just and they had like all these like, and the motorcycle, they would like flip a piece of metal and it become like a shield, and it was just like these fucking people are so effing creative, you know?
Yeah, seriously.
This is like so innovative. And just getting back to one of the things that I did enjoy about Anya Taylor-Joy's kind of performance. Okay, she gives you eyes for days. This is the kind of person that can do no talking acting, because she just looks at you and it's like, this is deep. This is deep.
She looks like a witch.
You know, no, she doesn't look like a witch.
Yeah.
So she gives you like those intense stares. So I really felt that worked for me. So that worked for me more than the Furiosa from Fury Road, just because I had the backstory already.
Oh,
in this, so I kind of knew where this girl was coming from. If I was this young lady's shoes, I would not be interested in talking to anybody, you know. So I got that, you know. I got how quiet the her being quiet saves her. Her like keeping things like one word responses saves her. Nobody asks questions. Nobody bothers her. You know, that's when she be able to pass as a man all this time. And so I just like, you know, this actress, she has those intense eyes and she really uses them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those eyes a little bit, because one of my favorite things about Mad Max Fury Road is the technological achievements of like having practical effects for a lot of this film. This one uses a lot more CGI and, more importantly, AI, because one of the ways they use AI in this film is they had the little girl. They kind of used AI to kind of like make her look more like Anya Taylor-Joy, right? To kind of blend the faces together. That's why at a certain point in the film, you're wondering, it's just like, is this the little girl I'm looking at? Or is this Anya Taylor-Joy? And it's impossible to tell because of how good the AI they use. And I just want to point out, as someone who teaches media production and like the ethics behind AI, this is a perfect example of good use of AI. This is like really time-consuming CGI work that if you're doing it frame by frame, it's just going to cost you so much because of manpower. If you have AI to help you, well, now we're finally looking at places where like, okay, this is how AI can help streamline things. And it's not generative AI, which is the one that steals other people's intellectual properties. It's just like making work easier for the CGI artists who are already getting just spread too thin as it is. So I just want to just like commend that. Like that was one of my favorite things about the film when I learned about that afterwards. Yeah, it's really, really extraordinarily great use of AI because like, yeah, in this, like there were, Nicole, did that happen to you where you're just like, wait, is this Anya Taylor-Joy or is this a girl? I can't tell.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, to Eddie's point too, in that segment too, when she's growing up, she's covering her face. So most of the time, all we get are her eyes. So she has to perform so reactively and she sells it. She does it very well. Yeah.
Oh, she's like, isn't that a drag queen who does who does eye dances, basically?
Eye dances. And the joke has been, the meme about that is Cyclops and X-Men 97.
Just
that's been the meme that's going on.
Have a good one.
So because you're bringing up AI and the fact that they did that, it begs the question, did Charlize Theron need to be recasted?
There's a difference between de-aging and just like slightly altering faces to like match another person's face, right?
Do you think it would have been really noticeable if older Charlize would have played younger Charlize?
Sometimes. I think sometimes it can be. And
she's still beautiful.
The other thing we had to...
She is.
The other thing we had to think about, who? Anya or Charlize?
Both of them.
Charlize. Yeah, they're both beautiful.
But do you want to put this woman through this torturous regimen of like having a body of like a teenager? Do you know what I mean? Like that's like Charlize Theron just has the body of a woman, right? This is supposed to be a young lady growing up. That's like, so if she would probably be forced by the studio to like get as thin as humanly possible so they could do as little CGI as possible. Not for the effects, but more so for the press around it. It's like, look at how thin she got for this role. She really committed, right? I just don't, I don't know. Charlize made the smart move in not doing that because that would have been, there's no way that's good for anybody. Do you know what I mean?
True.
So it
was George Miller who made the choice. I'm sure if the role was offered to her, she would have.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm just, but I
do you?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, do you feel the two different actresses? Do you feel the impact of that on watching it? Do you feel a disconnect, or do you actually think like it worked? He was able to pull it off. It doesn't matter.
The disconnect happened only at the very end, when the very end of the movie takes you into Fury Road. And it's Anya Taylor-Joy, and just like, and now I picked up the next movie, and it's just like, it's a whole different actress. That's the only time, like, at that point, that's where I probably would have got Charlize Theron to kind of reprise her role, right? And then just use a little bit of CGI there to kind of make them look a little bit more alike, like the eyes, because Anya Taylor-Joy has such distinct eyes.
But from my understanding, too, is it right away, or does she build up time?
No.
I feel like in Fury Road, she's been doing this back and forth with the rig.
She has, because we saw. Remember, we know time has passed,
but like on her own though,
right?
But on her own.
Yeah. So she's been like the driver for some time, and the reason we know this is because, at least how the story ends, she plants the seed in the bad guy Dementus. And so we know the tree has grown, right? So that takes years. It doesn't happen overnight. And she's been going back and forth and stuff. And she finally had the opportunity to do this plan, and that's where Fury Road picks up, right? That's kind of like the implication there. It didn't happen like a year later or so. It happened several years later, which is why I think at that point you should have just brought in Charlize Theron just for that scene and give you some satisfaction.
Right? Yeah, her triumphant return.
Yeah,
I think they have like a quick snapshot of Max in.
Yeah, there is. So you see Mad
right?
Max like in the actual, like he's like, it's similar to the shot that you saw in Fury Road, actually. Like he's at the top of the cliff and he's like looking down.
Yeah.
And
yeah, okay. I thought so. I was like, hey, that's supposed to be Max.
My buddy hated that shot because it's like, why did we need this? Like, we know it's a Mad Max movie, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of agree with him. It's just like, I don't know. It kind of does seem a little bit pandering.
Yeah, it was a little like, yeah. So George Miller's been making these movies for 45 years. And technically, every movie gets better. Technically. he understands how to approach them, I think, better and better with each movie. Now, there was a book that came out some years ago called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Do you guys know this book?
Nope. Malcolm Gladwell or Malcolm?
Malcolm Gladwell.
Gladwell.
Sorry, I'm
Gladwell.
Oh,
Gladwell. Okay.
Yes.
The guy, that's the one that says about like 10,000 hours in a specific
Yes, exactly.
practice.
There's a 10,000 hour rule. He talks about a lot of different things, right? Like he has this thesis that pretty much there's certain factors that contribute to high levels of success. Uh-huh. One of them is the 10,000 hour rule, claiming that the key to achieving really like expertise in any given subject or field or whatever is to pretty much spend many, many hours, a total of 10,000 hours doing it. And that anyone can achieve that level of success. Especially that's why if you start someone really early or something, the Beatles, they became so successful because they like had this gig where they would play for 5 hours straight, 5 days a week. So they accrued, the more they spent doing it, the more they got better at music, the more they understood music, the more they understood their instruments. So that is his theory. So if we take that and we take the fact that this is the fifth of his movies, he's developed it, he's created it, he shot it, he's spent hours writing it, editing it, storyboarding it. There might be some theory to this where it's just like he's spent most of his life doing it. So has he reached the 10,000 hour of it? And is he at his like kind of technical perfection of it? You know, is that why on a technical level, these movies have gotten better? Mm-hmm. And let's just say that the best thing about these movies are the technical aspects about it, are the practical effects, are the costumes, are the fact that it's edited fantastically. It's not like other movies where it's like too fast and you have no fucking idea what's going on. Mm-hmm. They're edited and shot very well. So it's interesting, right? I mean, I just wanted to kind of bring that up because there's kind of, if you would think that his Malcolm Gladwell's theory is kind of bullshit or whatever, here's a proponent of that being kind of true. There was this Japanese filmmaker named Yasujiro Ozu who kind of just made the same movie over and over again, where they were always like these family stories, but sometimes they're about a daughter and a father. Sometimes they're about a mother and a daughter. But they were all kind of different versions of the same film. And his whole thing was like, I want to get really good at doing one thing. And sometimes people who do too many different things, you know, you're not getting really good at one thing. So is the goal to get really good at one thing? And is George Miller kind of like an example of how if you dedicate your life to doing one thing, you can actually get to a point where you perfect it? Because maybe not Furiosa, but Fury Road is one hell of a good fucking action movie. Mm-hmm. Furiosa, so I don't know. What do you think?
No, I think, I think so too. I mean, Furiosa had to do more storytelling, and maybe that's what kind of hindered it a little. Because if George Miller did focus more so on just spectacle again, well then why not just give us another Mad Max movie? He's giving us an origin story. He's exploring this character that we like.
He's giving us another Mad Max movie, by the way. There's going to be another one.
Oh, is there? He's making another one?
Yeah. And by the way, George Miller is 79.
Okay. So, I mean, we have an 80-something-year-old president at the moment. So it's just like...
No, I mean, it's pretty friggin' impressive. He's still like making some kick-ass movies at that age.
Oh, wait, how old is Spielberg?
Spielberg might be around the same age.
Yeah, so I mean, they whatever. And Scorsese, they're all making movies and stuff. God, I mean, my mindset on that. It's just like, just retire and give like the younger generation some time to make their own mark.
Spielberg's 77.
You're gonna be an old man. You're gonna be an old man, Rolando. One day, when I'm old, you're gonna be an old man, and you're gonna want to be able, feel valuable, and feel that your life has something to still offer.
If
you're not gonna give a shit about any young person rising up unless you mentor them, but at the end of the day, you are gonna fight, or you're gonna want to fight for every inch you can get when it comes to feeling valuable, appreciated, and being creative.
If the world hasn't gone to shit by the time I'm in my 80s, that's a big if.
All right, so let's do a quick lightning round. Sorry. I cut you off. I'm sorry, but let's do a quick lightning round.
Go.
Lightning round. Okay. Let's do Max, actually. Do we prefer Mel Gibson's version of Max or do we prefer Tom Hardy's?
Oh, that's an easy one for me. I'm going to go
Hardy.
Mel Gibson. You're going Tom Hardy, really?
I like Tom Hardy.
It's a lips?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm going with Mel Gibson. Like, I do like Mel. It's so funny. I didn't realize that Mel Gibson was in the first Mad Max. I thought it was a different actor. Because he looks so different. Wow. He doesn't look like Mel Gibson that I know, which is like when his hair is like bigger and stuff. And I think his eyebrows were shaped differently. I think he got some work done or something. But he does not look like the Mel Gibson that I know.
It's your face blindness, babe. Come on.
I think it is, yeah. It could be that too.
Perhaps. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Mel Gibson strictly for Road Warrior. Mm-hmm. He kind of is giving his best cowboy. And you just see a lot of the charm that would go on to make him a superstar, but you see it developing there. And his relationship with his dog, we didn't talk about the dog because we didn't really talk about those movies. And also because it follows up his performance from the first one to, you see the change in him. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's hard because Tom Hardy only has one movie. So this is a little bit biased because he had more to work with and more time to spend with his character. But I really do think that it's one of Mel Gibson's best performances. And I don't know. I don't think Mel Gibson's that diverse of an actor, at least that what I've seen. But in terms of his action movies, he's pretty good. Agree. Yeah. So sorry, Mel Gibson. Furiosa. Charlize or Anya Taylor-Joy? Who do we think is the best Furiosa?
Eddie, I'll let you go first.
I don't know. I did enjoy Anya.
I think I want to
Taylor-Joy. I did enjoy her, and it's more just because I got to see her. The movie was about her focus, her origin story. Well, for Fury Road, it was kind of playing back and forth between her and Max. So
I am going to agree with Eddie. I think it's not to say that I didn't like Charlize Theron as role, because I did, yeah, but. Definitely, Anya Taylor-Joy had more to work with, and so, she wins. Just like Mel Gibson had more to work with than Tom Hardy. Technically, so did Anya Taylor-Joy, because she was the vehicle for this piece.
Good points. But I'm going to go with Charlize because I also think that Anya is kind of in her shadow. And I also think that the fact that I watched Fury Road first and then Furiosa, but you guys watched Furiosa and then Fury Road, I think that lends to how we have digested these performances. I've spent more time with Charlene's at the end of the day too. But I think that Charlize's version
you kept saying Charlize.
Yeah.
Like, who was that?
I know, I was having a Rolando moment. Oh. Her version is a hardened woman. Something about Anya Taylor's version, she doesn't seem as, I don't know, that... Because also this is the backstory, so she's not quite there yet. But I really, really, and the disappointment, she gets all the climax moments in Fury Road. And she gets a little bit more to act with, where she's just kind of like using her eyes very effectively. Mm-hmm. But she's just kind of doing that in Furiosa. But she's doing it good. I don't know. I'm going to give it to Charlize Theron there.
Okay.
Now, here's a fun question. Whose clan do you want to be a part of if you're living in this wasteland, right? Mm-hmm. Who do you want to be the person that, you're a part of? In any Mad Max scenario, by the way.
Well, the Thunderdome does have Auntie, right? So I might go, and that's the one I grew up with, so I might go with the Thunderdome kids. Those teenagers and stuff. Yeah. Eddie?
Okay.
Give me a second.
He's trying to think. It's just like, that's a...
Yeah, it's like they're all miserable places to be.
I don't remember all the... What's it called? I can't say I remember all the ones that I remember the most are the ones it's not Gastown.
I would take
Citadel?
Citadel if I could be a farmer on the Citadel.
Okay.
If I could be a farmer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He could be a farmer in those clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I'm, of course, going with the green place of many mothers. Hello.
Oh, but that should not be an option. That's the best option. That's like...
Of all the ones, maybe I would want to be part of that clan, that peaceful clan in Road Warrior that Humongous was trying to infiltrate. So...
No, I don't know. Sure. And now I'm trying to second guess my thought, because like the people in the in the Thunderdome movies, they're kind of just stuck to the area. I guess I would want to be in a clan that does a lot of traveling around, at least. Because if you're going to be in a post-apocalyptic world, traveling should be an option, right? And I guess what's the better mode of traveling, right? Because some of the clans have motorbikes, some have fashion like vehicles. I guess the motorbike would probably be more fun in Australia, the desert wasteland.
Yeah, so the vast openness. It's the closest thing to a horse. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Well, what do you guys think? What clan would you want to be a part of in the Australian wasteland future? Which performance did you enjoy? Did you see Furiosa? Because you should. You should see it on the big screen. Let us know your thoughts. You should email us by letting us know your thoughts at remakes.rebootsrevivals@gmail.com. Hit us up on social media, on Instagram at remakes.rebootsrevivals, on Twitter at Remakes Podcast, and also we're on TikTok. So you can follow us on TikTok at RRR Podcast. Mm-hmm. You can search for us on Facebook and YouTube by typing in Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals. You could listen to episodes on YouTube. You can listen to episodes on Podbean and on our website. All information attached to the podcasting platform you're listening to this on right now. And if you go to that, give us a rating. And if it's Apple Podcast, please leave us a review. And the next time you guys will be tuning in, if you are a bi-weekly at this point listener, let me just move my cat. You'll be tuning in for our special Pride episode, because we like to do at least one Pride episode every year since we are a queer podcast. And so we will be doing a special Pride episode next time. We will be tackling, though, a movie. So it's not like, we're doing a theme or something. We actually will be doing a property, but it will be Pride themed. So there's that.
Is that what's next?
Yes.
Oh.
That's what I just said.
I know. It's caught me off surprise. It's just like, whoa.
It is available on our schedule. So.
Oh, okay. Thank you for
Google
the admin talk. Oh, it's odd.
I mean, we went over that last episode, Rolando.
Okay. Pride episode next week. Next episode. Can't wait. I'm actually looking forward to it. So.
Yes, it's going to be a good one. And also, in a couple of days, it's going to be Pride. So happy early Pride. Hope everybody gets to go out and do some proud things, I guess. I don't know.
If you can.
If you can.
I don't know. Depending on who.
Depending on what state you're listening to.
It might be rough. But that's why we have to go celebrate, guys.
Exactly. Yeah. Celebrate any way you can. And if not, just, maybe consider going to the movies. It's long, but it's actually worth seeing in the movie theaters. It was really cool seeing on the big screen. So I would recommend it, guys.
Yeah.
See it on a Tuesday for a discount.
Okay. Yeah, that's helping the movie theater industry.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, it helps everybody.
All right. Well,
all right.
I guess that's it.
Yeah. Until next time, stay original.